On April 6, 2023, a Utah mother named Kouri Richins appeared on morning television to promote a children's book she had written about helping kids grieve the loss of a father. She smiled at the cameras, spoke lovingly about her 3 young sons, and held up the book, Are You With Me? 1 month later, she was arrested for murdering the husband she had been mourning on camera. His name was Kouri Richins, and prosecutors said she had poisoned his cocktail with 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. Kouri Eugene Richins was born on May 13, 1982, and raised on a cattle ranch in Utah, mending fences and hauling hay before most kids his age were out of bed. His family called him Rico. He grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and served a 2-year mission in Mexico City, where he learned to speak fluent Spanish. He earned a degree in international studies from the University of Utah. And then, because Eric was the kind of person who preferred building things with his hands to sitting behind a desk, he started a stonemasonry business with his best friend Cody Wright. They called it C&E Stonemasonry, C for Cody and E for Eric, and they built intricate outdoor stonework for high-end homes near Park City. The business thrived. And so Eric was this big, warm, jovial guy. Always the life of the party, always the first one to make everyone laugh. He owned every motorized toy you could imagine, 4-wheelers, side-by-sides, snowmobiles, trucks. He coached his son's sports teams and chased them around the yard until they were screaming with laughter. He had 3 boys, Carter, who was 9, Ashton, who was 7, and Weston, who was 5. His mother, Linda, had been a drug and alcohol counselor who raised her children with a fierce understanding of what substances could do to a family. She had instilled that in Eric, and he carried it with him his whole life. On June 15, 2013, Eric married a woman named Kouri Darden in a garden ceremony in Utah. They settled in Kamas, a small mountain town just outside Park City, and for a while, the life they were building looked exactly like the one Eric had always wanted: a house in the mountains, a growing business, 3 healthy boys running through the yard. But what Eric did not fully understand was that the woman he had married was not building the same life he was. Kouri had plans of her own, and by the fall of 2020, those plans had begun to diverge from Eric's in ways that would prove fatal. Because by then, Kouri Richins was $4.5 million in debt from a string of failing real estate ventures. She was being sued by creditors. Her bank account was negative. She was carrying on a secret affair with a man named Josh Grossman, texting him about her crazy dream of buying a mansion and starting over with millions. Eric's estate was worth more than $4 million. His life insurance policies totaled nearly $3 million. And Kouri had begun to calculate what would happen if her husband were no longer alive. In October of 2020, Kouri Richins quietly sat down with 2 lawyers, a divorce attorney, and an estate planner. He was not ready to leave his marriage. His family said he hoped to keep things together for the sake of his 3 boys, but he wanted to protect what he had built. And so Eric created a living trust, placed his entire estate under the control of his sister, Katie Richins Benson, and designated the trust, not Kouri, as the beneficiary of his life insurance. He was carefully, deliberately building a wall between his wife and his money. But Kouri noticed. On January 1, 2022, she attempted to change the beneficiary of Eric's $2 million insurance policy to herself, without his knowledge. The insurance company flagged the change and notified Eric directly. He reversed it immediately. Weeks later, Kouri forged his signature on a separate $100,000 life insurance application. She also borrowed $250,000 using a fraudulent power of attorney with Eric's forged initials. And then came Valentine's Day. On February 14, 2022, Kouri left Eric a sandwich and a note before heading out to meet Josh Grossman. Hours later, Eric called 2 friends separately. He told them he felt like he was going to die. He broke out in hives so severe that he injected himself with his son's EpiPen and drank an entire bottle of Benadryl. And he told one of those friends something that would echo through the investigation that followed. "I think my wife tried to poison me." 3 days before that sandwich, Kouri's housekeeper, a woman named Carmen Lauber, had purchased more than 15 pills believed to contain fentanyl from a drug dealer and provided them to Kouri. Eric survived Valentine's Day, but the next attempt would come 18 days later. Eric did not go to the police. He did not leave. He stayed in that house with his 3 boys and the woman he believed had tried to kill him, because Kouri Richins was the kind of father who would endure anything to keep his family together. And that decision cost him everything. On the evening of March 4th, 2022, Kouri told Eric they were celebrating. She said she had just closed on a property for her real estate business. She made him a Moscow Mule, vodka, ginger beer, lime, and brought it to their bedroom. Eric drank it. At some point around 9:30, Kouri told investigators she went to sleep in one of her son's rooms because the boy was having bad dreams. At 3:21 in the morning, Kouri called 911. She told the dispatcher her husband was cold and not breathing. "I turned over like to put my arm around Eric," she said, "and he was just cold. Like it was like putting your arm over a cement brick." When paramedics arrived, they found Eric on the floor at the foot of his bed. He was pronounced dead at 4:58 a.m. He was 39 years old. The toxicology report revealed what had really been in that cocktail. Eric's blood contained 15 nanograms per milliliter of fentanyl, 5 times the amount that can kill a person. And the fentanyl was not medical grade. It was illicit, street-level fentanyl, confirmed by the presence of acetylfentanyl in his stomach. The pathologist who performed the autopsy found no signs of heart disease, stroke, or any natural cause of death. Kouri Richins had been poisoned. But that was not even the worst part. In the days after Eric's death, Kouri called his father Eugene and told him the medical examiner had determined Eric died from a combination of COVID and a rare lung fungus, the same condition that had killed Eugene's own wife. When the family contacted the medical examiner's office, they were told the results had not been released and no one had called Kouri. She had invented the entire story to keep them from asking questions. And then investigators pulled her phone. They found that Kouri had searched. If someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? She had searched. Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? She had searched. Luxury prisons for the rich in America. And she had searched her own name, Kouri Richins, net worth, as if calculating the value of what she had done. But Kouri Richins was not done performing. Exactly 1 year after Eric's death, she self-published a children's book called Are You With Me? It told the story of a little boy learning to cope with the death of his father, who appears as an angel watching over his children. The characters were based on Eric and their 3 sons. On April 6, 2023, Kouri appeared on a Utah morning show called Good Things Utah to promote it. She sat on the couch without her wedding ring, smiled at the hosts, and said, "I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night." The hosts would later say they felt duped. 1 month after that television appearance, on May 8, 2023, Kouri Richins was arrested at her home in Camas and charged with aggravated murder. But the most devastating detail in this case was not the fentanyl, or the forged documents, or the children's book. It was this. Kouri Richins knew. He had been telling people for years that his wife was trying to kill him. After the Valentine's Day sandwich, he told 2 friends directly that he believed Kouri had poisoned him. Years earlier, during a trip to Greece, Eric had become violently ill after drinking something Kouri gave him. He later told his sister Katie he believed she had tried to kill him on that trip too. And at some point before his death, Eric told his family the words that would become the most haunting line in the entire case. "If anything ever happens to me, my wife is to blame." And yet he stayed. He stayed because of Carter and Ashton and Weston, the 3 boys who slept down the hall while their father drank a Moscow Mule that their mother had made. Eric was not a man who missed the warning signs. He saw them clearly. But he was a man who believed that leaving meant abandoning his sons to the person he feared most, and so he stayed, and he died, in the house he had built for the family he was trying to hold together. On the morning Eric was found dead, his sister Katie arrived at the house to be with the family. While one of the boys cried, Kouri turned to Katie and mentioned that she was about to close on a property, a mansion in Midway, Utah. Katie would later testify, "You can't tell me you're going to close on that Midway mansion when my brother just died." Kouri's response, "Yeah, absolutely. He has nothing to do with it." Kouri Richins faces nearly 3 dozen charges: aggravated murder, attempted murder for the Valentine's Day poisoning, forgery, insurance fraud, mortgage fraud, and money laundering. Her trial began on February 23, 2026, in Summit County, Utah. She has been denied bail 3 times and has remained in custody since her arrest. As of this recording, the trial is ongoing. A judge ruled that Eric's family, not Kouri, would receive his insurance money. His sister Katie was named trustee of his estate and guardian of the trust he had created for his 3 sons. Carter, Ashton, and Weston are in the care of Eric's family. And so the children's book still exists. Are You With Me is still listed for sale, a story about a father who watches over his sons as an angel, written by the woman who prosecutors say is the reason he is dead. Eric Richins, the ranch kid from Commas who built stone walls with his best friend, who coached his boys' teams, who stayed in a marriage he knew was dangerous because he could not bear to leave his sons behind, never got to tell them his side of the story. He tried. He told his friends. He told his sister. He told his family. He said, "If anything happens to me, it was her." But nobody stopped it in time. And now, the only story his boys have is the one their mother wrote.